Alright everybody, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, where to buy rural land in the United States. This is a question that I have asked on my channel almost on a weekly basis. I'm going to give you 10 places that I think are beautiful and scenic and have potential, but this is nothing more than my personal opinion. In some parts of the country, rural land that has been making money for hundreds of years can go between $45,000 an acre all the way up to $140,000 an acre. And in places that do not have a agricultural use, rural land can be as much as 100 times cheaper. So you need to know that you're just getting my personal opinion and that you need to understand every single market and what every $1,000 per acre actually means in different regions of the country. I hate to be that guy, but please help me get to 100,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, we just reached 80,000. We're trying to make it to the 100,000 mark so we can get that plaque that YouTube sends you. One of the cheapest places to buy land in the United States is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's beautiful and land is plentiful, but when it snows here, this entire region of the country becomes completely inaccessible. And there's no real particular order to my list. These are just 10 places where you can buy rural land. Number 1 is Mammoth Springs, Arkansas. A lot of people just dream about having 80 or 100 acres where they can pop up a little cabin in a beautiful place. For $160,000, you can get over 80 acres out here, surrounded by lakes, nature, mountains, and beautiful clear springs. This is a great place for people looking for like a very rural retreat that's affordable. Regionally here, you're going to find some of the best barbecue in the United States if you want to get overweight and obese. When you're ready to get out and have some fun, Branson, Missouri is not that far away. That's kind of like the Panama City Beach of this region of the country. Into Missouri, you have the Mark Twain National Forest. Both on the Arkansas and on the Missouri side, you have some beautiful areas. Because mountain land doesn't really lend itself to agriculture, it's usually fairly affordable. Number 2 is Marshall County, Alabama. With cities like Boaz and Albertville, this county has the largest Hispanic population of anywhere in Alabama, which means that if you're looking to get into farming, you'll have a really good labor force accessible. While finding larger plots of land here is difficult, if you're able to find a large plot of land, you can get it for as cheap as $3,500 an acre. Nearby is Huntsville, Alabama, which is a fast-growing area. One of the largest challenges of finding valuable farmland is just the access to the labor force. And for being Alabama, Marshall County has a much better position. We're going to include a link on the video description for all of these properties. Most likely by the time you see this, most of these properties would have already sold, but it gives you an idea of what these regional markets look like. And again, this is nothing more than my personal opinion, and I have no association with the realtors that are selling these properties. In Marshall County is Guntersville, Alabama, which is a beautiful and very scenic town. You can affordably buy half a mountain and build a beautiful house with a great mountain view up there. Poultry farms are a huge source of income for this region. If you're browsing on Google Maps, chicken plants are going to look like this, and they can be smelled for miles and miles. So if you're looking for a residential place to live, you probably don't want to be within 5 to 10 miles of one of these things. Perhaps during the time of the year when you go here, it may not smell bad, but there'll be times of the year when the smell will be unbearable. Even nastier than chicken plants are these things right here. These red colored lakes can be smelled for miles. Then there's these guys. These are paper mills. These things can also smell for miles. So if you're looking into buying agriculture or rural land and you've never lived in these places before, just know that there's a lot of stuff you're gonna have to look for that could affect your property value and also the comfort of being in that property. Number 3 is Madison, Georgia. For about $7,000 an acre, if you're buying over 1,000 acres, is a good deal. Now, of course, if you're buying 100 acres, that price will increment greatly. It seems like when you're buying land, the more money you have, the bigger of a deal you can get. If you were buying just a few acres here or there, that price could be 3 or 4 times higher. When you buy in bulk, that's why a lot of people really like to buy land. You get a huge deal when you're spending millions. One of the great benefits of spending millions of dollars on land is that you will get a better deal. A lot of places are not going to let you just subdivide that land, and of course you have to have roads and access. Somebody could need 10, 20, or 100 acres. It's hard to find somebody that needs 1,000 acres. Madison, Georgia is to the east of Atlanta. It has good access to the interstate, and it is a beautiful little town with a lot of potential. You will not find too many towns as nice as this. A lot of the area surrounding the city is hilly, but there are flat patches, and those of course are being used for agriculture. Atlanta is one of the most spread out cities in the United States, and places far away eventually start to become more like a city, which means that your rural or agricultural farming land could, in theory, increase in value if the local jurisdiction allows rezoning. It's always advisable to talk to the local city or county where you're going to buy and really understand the zoning of the land you're going to buy. Some places are residential only, some places are agriculture or residential, and some places will not allow you to rezone or repurpose your land. It's important not only to know what you're buying, but what each municipality or county is going to allow you to do with your land. You can usually go to the county and ask them what the zoning is for this land, and if there's any changes that they're going to allow rezoning, or if there's any type of restriction on your land. In most rural areas, the people that work in these offices are going to be happy to give you as much information as they can, and maybe even gossip a little bit about the neighborhood. Number 4 is the rural area around Clinton, North Carolina, and I'm not going to be specific to one place. This is a huge and very spread out region of North Carolina. There's a huge rural Hispanic population in this area because there are jobs in agriculture. You can get land out here for under $6,000 an acre that will have multiple applications. Bestneighborhoods.org has an online race and ethnicity map. With this tool, you'll be able to identify what areas have large Hispanic populations, and that is usually an indication that a rural area has a lot of jobs in agriculture. North Carolina in rural areas has a huge variety of ethnicities, which means that there's a lot of different things going on in these rural areas. Not only do you have rural diversity, but you also have some of the most beautiful countryside in the United States here. These groups of Hispanics that moved into these rural areas of North Carolina didn't do it just to do it. They came here because there's jobs in the area, which means that at some point or another, somebody might want to buy your land to purpose it for farming or agriculture. As you can see from the bestneighborhood.org ethnicity map, there's a huge Hispanic population living in this part of North Carolina, hinting the possibility of a lot of jobs in agriculture. Number 5 is Marianna, Florida. On the Florida Panhandle, you're going to find a region near Chattahoochee and Marianna that has red clay. Red clay is a great material to build on, and it also lends itself great for agricultural purposes. If the Florida Panhandle starts to have a lot of growth, which I believe it will in the future, as prices in South Florida increase, the next area to be built up will be the Florida Panhandle. These areas with mountains of red clay could be a huge resource for the building and developing of the area. Land is still fairly affordable here, and you can even find properties that have been hit by tornadoes or hurricanes that are almost destroyed, and you can get a great deal on these properties. And it's one of the few areas in Florida where there's actually a little bit of elevation. Think about living in Florida but still being on a small little hill or mountain. This area has a large rural African American population, and it has some of the lowest overdose death rates in the entire state. Number 6 is Baldwin County, Alabama. Not only is the land here useful for agriculture, there's also the potential of rezoning and using this land for new development. Baldwin County, Alabama is a massive beach destination, and a lot of people travel to this area to go to the great beaches of the Alabama coast. And in the process, a lot of those people fall in love with these beach towns, and you can expect a lot of people from Texas or Oklahoma are dreaming about living here in this region of Alabama, being the furthest west beaches with clear water and white sand along the Gulf Coast. This area is a go-to destination year after year for people in places like Oklahoma and Texas, since it is the closest that these people can get to a real beach. It's one of the few places in the United States where you can go from agricultural land to beachside resorts in a very short period of time, and that is one of the biggest draws to this area. There is still a lot of agricultural land very close to the water in the coast of Alabama being threatened by development, but if you're looking to invest, that's not exactly a bad thing. This particular county in Alabama should really belong to Florida. Before investing in Alabama, I would strongly recommend that you study the state's real estate laws because it's not like other states. Even real estate along the coast is still somewhat affordable here compared to other beachside communities. Number 7 is Siloam Springs, Arkansas. The extreme northwest corner of Arkansas is a fast-growing and diverse area with places like Fayetteville, Rogers, and of course, Bentonville. This part of the state continues to grow, and the rural areas surrounding this urban sprawl are really good. Siloam Springs is a great area because it has a large Hispanic community, and you can expect there's going to be a lot of agricultural jobs in this area. Everyone says this is the best part of Arkansas to live, and it is one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in the country. And like I said, if you get outside of the urban areas, the rural parts are beautiful, and there's an increasing interest in this area from home development as well. One thing that I found really awesome about Arkansas is it's not just chicken plants. A lot of people here have cattle on the side of mountains and sheep and goat and a very diverse farming economy. The area is natural beauty as much as it gets. The weather is a nice mix and contrast. It's almost perfect weather here. Regional downsides is that the area is very mountainous and traversing large spans can take a lot longer than in other places. Walmart brings a lot of jobs to the urban area here because it's where it's headquartered, and there's also a large Pacific Islander community. If you're looking for a scenic rural area to have a farm and a home with a great view, this part of the country should definitely be on your list. There's a lot of Hispanic communities in all of these metropolitan areas, and there's a lot of businesses, Mexican restaurants, Mexican bakeries. There's a lot of Hispanic business here. Fencing in your property is a huge asset in a lot of rural places. And I think if you're looking to buy property, you should definitely budget to have the property surveyed and then fenced in. When I lived in rural Alabama, you could get paid up to $50 an hour to install fence posts, and you could work as many hours as you wanted. I remember one day the temperature was like in the 30s, and me and Katie were out there digging fence pole holes, and the property owner came out and was mad at us for working in the cold weather. If you are young and have a hard working spirit, there's no limit to what you can do in an agriculture area. Farms need a lot of help, and in these rural parts, it's hard to get it. And it's no secret that people in these parts like to work with cash money. Don't expect a check. A lot of people think there's not a lot of money to be made in rural areas. You won't believe how much work you can get in rural areas. There's a lot of elderly people that need a lot done in these properties, and usually the young people out there just don't want to work. I really wish I could have stayed in rural Alabama. I enjoyed living in rural places, but it wasn't me who decided it was time to leave. It was a lot of the people in the community who had a very bad sentiment about outsiders. Number 8 is Chatsworth, Georgia, located to the east of Dalton, Georgia. This area is 50% Hispanic. There's a lot of companies in textile that brought work to the area, and they would actually bring people directly from the border to this town in Georgia so they can start working. Today, there's a large Hispanic community here, and over 50% of the urban area is Hispanic. On the outskirts of the city is beautiful farmland with drastic mountain backdrops. Most of this area is mountainous, but in the valleys, there's good land. Flat land can be worth as much as 3 times more than land that is mountainous. The piece of property that I had in rural Alabama was mostly mountainous, and I was actually plotting to buy a piece of equipment and little by little make it flat to increase the value of the land. Agriculture land in the South is much more affordable many times than places like Indiana, Illinois, or Iowa. However, that land has been cultivated and improves its crop year after year. The quality of the soil and its ability to produce crops is also a huge factor in how much the land is worth. And in some regions of Appalachia, the land is so unfertile that it's only good for its natural setting, not much for producing anything. That never really stops newcomers who are unfamiliar with the world of agriculture from trying. Over the years, I've seen people start a farm, get really invested into it, only to find out that the obligation of having animals, there's no break. They eat every single day. They have to be cared for every single day. And if they have little babies, you have to care for them as well. Most people are just buying the land just to have it as an investment. Some people actually try to do stuff on the land and they get way over their heads. Number 9 is Pavo, Georgia, just north of Florida. This is a beautiful place. I made a video about this small town, and more people saw the video than there are people living in the town. I had one of the local people come to my video and say, "Hey man, thanks for liking our town. Your video helped us sell a lot of properties." I thought that was really neat of him to say that, so let me just throw this town on another list, and hopefully these people out there can continue to sell land and investment properties to people from other places. It's really beautiful out there, and I'm sure what captivated my audience was just the natural beauty of this place. It's a small town that offers nothing, and that's what a lot of people today are looking for. These are real farmers out here. They're actually working the land, and that's always a plus. Georgia is known for pine. That's another huge industry, and the only thing that can destroy that is a hurricane or a tornado. Over the years, I've met a lot of people from the Cuban community in Moultrie, Georgia. I think there's a chicken plant in Moultrie, Georgia, just north of Pavo, and a lot of Cubans from Miami went up there, bought properties, did investments, and this little town is like really done a lot as far as growing because of the people that came to work at the chicken plant, and they actually bought properties and did really well for them. So there are possibilities to move to a small rural town in South Georgia. I love the people in this area. I've met some great people from like Cairo, Bainbridge, Moultrie, Pavo. There's like really great people along that southern edge of Georgia, right outside of Florida. Once you get a little north of that, it kind of changes for the worst. It's a beautiful region of Georgia, and with real estate prices in Florida increasing, a lot of people from Florida are really looking at this region. Moultrie, Georgia now has 2 Cuban restaurants. While other parts of Georgia are vacant, falling apart, and their properties are abandoned, this little region from Thomasville, Moultrie, and Pavo, this whole little area has actually had properties getting repaired, getting fixed. The whole area just started to grow and continue to become a better, nice, beautiful place because they've been welcoming to the Latino communities that have come from Florida. those people that have moved here have been able to thrive, and these communities have actually bonded and became better. Sadly, some parts of Georgia, there's no interest in buying rural real estate, and houses that were one day beautiful Victorian homes today are sitting empty, and eventually these homes will be beyond repair. Take the town of Dawson, which is in really bad shape. Many YouTubers have gone there and just shown the condition of this town. It hurts so much to see a town that's beautiful, and these southern Georgia towns really are beautiful, but if they can't get people to move to these communities and the people that are from there move out, it's hard on these rural communities. But sadly, when you go a little bit north from Columbus all the way to Jessup, Georgia, this entire like mid-Georgia area, towns are losing population. The people that are from there are leaving. Nobody wants to move in. Industries and homes are just sitting vacant. Nobody wants to live in these towns. The United States is a very drastic place. You're either improving or you're not growing at all. You're either like population is growing 10% decade by decade, or you're shrinking. There's not a lot of really steady growth in the United States. When you look at cities in Europe, for example, you can look for decades and sometimes even centuries and just see a perfectly steady human growth pattern that is natural. But here in the United States, your community is either thriving or it's dying. People talk about all types of analytics to determine if an area is good or bad. One of the simplest, most straightforward analytics you can look at is population growth. An area in the United States can be in three positions. It's either growing, stagnant, or dying. And if it's stagnant, it's probably going to be dying very soon. A lot of people don't want people from other states to move to their towns, but what those people don't understand is that in the United States, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no staying the same. Nobody likes change, but it's better for your town to change in a positive way than it is to watch it die. I don't know what makes the United States just a bust or boom economy. Could it be that there's a lot of foreign investors? That's a very interesting thing, because I noticed that in Alabama, a huge percentage of the land in the state, something like 7% of the state of Alabama, is actually owned by foreign investors. I'm just going to guess and say that that probably cannot be good for these communities. It's different to have an immigrant move into a community and become part of the community, but to have somebody in another part of the world who's nowhere near this property speculating on where you live, that possibly doesn't have any positive outcomes for anybody. I don't really see the benefit of it, but it's interesting how sometimes people in the United States focus on what's in front of them right now, like immigrant groups moving into the rural communities, yet they fail to notice that secretly these trusts that are buying these companies that are coming in with all types of strange names and buying these pieces of land are people in other countries with money in other places that will never even physically see these places in their lifetime. Take the piece of land that I bought in Lehigh Acres, Florida. It was a quarter acre, and I bought it from an Asian company. The person didn't even really exist in the United States. I started looking into who owned the properties on the property appraiser near where I lived and where I had my property, and I started to see all these Chinese companies and trust funds that were from China, and just all these weird outside investment groups from other countries. And I was like, do I really want my land to be valued because people in other countries that are nowhere near it want to speculate on it? That possibly cannot be a good thing. One thing I like about buying land in South Florida for the most part is that you can physically appreciate the changes in the people that are buying these properties. And a lot of times they fail because they don't understand that the agricultural land they're trying to cultivate just isn't meant for that. Farming isn't a new invention. For hundreds and just centuries and centuries, people have been farming in the United States, and farmers kind of understand where stuff grows and when it grows and why it grows and where it is risky to do it. And I just find it interesting in South Florida how many times I see people buy properties thinking they're going to start a miniature farm, knowing deep down that's not going to happen. It's failed over and over time again. You're not the first person to think in all these centuries that you're going to finally come up with some type of farming idea that the people there haven't done yet. It's time tested. Then there's other ideas like people are buying agricultural land to grow buffalo or bison. Well, buffalo and bison were all over the United States and they were a food source all over. So that in theory kind of makes sense. Number 10 is a place called Muce, Florida. M-U-C-E, Muce, Florida. This is northwest of LaBelle. Not even people that live in Southwest Florida knows that this place exists. Talking about places where agricultural projects fail. This area has been used for agricultural purposes for a very long time. However, this land here is now really good for tropical nurseries. There's also a bunch of oranges being grown out there. So I first came across a property that was 2 acres off of Tom Croker Road, and I really wanted this property. It was a 2-story cabin that was like $140,000. I was hoping that I would get $140,000 for my property in Naples, but my property in Naples never sold, and the property on Tom Croker did. It was this beautiful property surrounded by alligators and orange trees and big trees and all types of tropical plants. If you want to live in Southwest Florida but still live and feel like you're out in the middle of the Everglades, this area is definitely a place you should look into. It's one of the wildest corners of Southwest Florida. People don't even know this place exists. It's still good for tropical nurseries, and there's a lot of that. There's still a lot of oranges, a lot of palm tree plants, and just types of tropical nurseries like the thing out here. There's a lot of hogs, so if you're planting certain types of plants, that's a huge problem out there. But if you would just want tropical land in an area that still isn't discovered, that people just don't know about, if you just want to drop off the face of the earth and still be in Southwest Florida, this is an awesome area to invest in. The closest town is LaBelle, and it's growing like crazy. I think they're getting a Starbucks put into LaBelle soon. They still don't have a Publix, but they will soon. The area is growing like crazy. Because it's in Glades County, it's a complete investment crapshoot. They could all of a sudden decide to develop this place because Glades County isn't like Cordier. It's not like Lee. It's kind of a whole different county. They could just decide to do some type of... they built Babcock Ranch out there, and that's in the middle of nowhere. They built Ave Maria in Naples. That's in the middle of nowhere. Could this be the next Ave Maria or Babcock Ranch? Who the crap knows? It is in Glades County, one of the poorest counties in Florida, but agriculture isn't the only thing going on here. This area has been used for cattle for centuries. Yes, I said centuries. When you think about Florida, you really don't think about cattle, but there's actually ranches here that have thousands of acres. There was a time when there were wild cattle all over Florida, but there was a time when a tick was kind of going around, and they had to go and hunt and kill all the wild cattle to make sure they wouldn't infect the domestic cattle with this tick that was going around. But there was a time when Florida had wild cattle all over it. Florida really, if there's one thing Florida is good at for some reason, it's cattle. And when you move from LaBelle, Arcadia, further north up into Kissimmee, historically this whole entire area of Florida was nothing but cowboys. Alright guys, there you go. Those are 10 places in the United States where you can invest in the rural land. I'm not saying these are great places to invest. I don't know if they're going to appreciate or if they're going to flop. Who the crap knows? All these places have different variables, but it should give you an idea if you're looking to invest in land of 10 different settings you could invest your money into in rural America. I don't make commissions on you buying land in these places, but my videos are useful to you, or at least informative, so at least hit the like button, give me a comment to help these videos get more views, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. We're desperately going to have to fight to get to the 100,000 subscriber mark. We just hit 80,000, so I work hard for you guys. Give me something back in return. And you know what? Don't even do it for me. I know y'all don't like me. Do it for Katie. I feed her and I take care of her sometimes, so don't even do it for me. Y'all don't like me. I know y'all don't like me. Y'all like Katie, but Katie's sleeping right now. But I make sure that she has a place to sleep comfortably. So I know you guys don't want to do it for me. Y'all don't like me, y'all don't care about me, but y'all do care about Katie. So don't do it for me, do it for Katie. And screw you for liking her and not liking me, even though I'm the one taking care of her. 50 comments. I'm here for Katie. Me personally, I would want to buy 100 or 150 acres somewhere in northern Michigan in the UP, and then like snowbird down to Florida during the winters and like during the nice part of the year, and even like a little bit of the snow too. Like just be up there and see the snow for a little bit, and then when it gets depressing, hop on down to Florida. But like I actually would, and the deals that you can get up there, like especially when you get past Marquette, are incredible. But these places are absolutely isolated. I've been all over America, and if there's one place that's captivated me, it's been the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I don't know why it's captivated me, but I guess being from warm Florida, the notion of being in a frigid, frozen place, isolated from traffic and people, just feels like relieving to me. Like just like I'll be able to breathe and freeze to death. And I'll tell you, we actually do really well in cold weather. When I was in Indianapolis recently, it was like 22 degrees, and I had a beautiful day. It was sunny, even though it was 22 degrees. Me and Katie would love to one day be able to get ourselves a property up there and just have a nice like escape up there in northern Michigan and just be down in Florida for the winters. But of course, we're in our 30s and talking about being snowbirds. It's kind of unrealistic, but you gotta have dreams and aspirations in life. We can get to 500,000 subscribers. I think we won't have a problem doing that. And I can't wait to pick up a good Michigan accent and just make fun of their accent and their people and their culture until they all unsubscribe from my channel. I just can't wait to do that. Anyways, that's today's video, guys. Where the crap would you invest in land? Have you invested in land in the past? Was it a good investment, a bad investment? What I found out about buying land in South Florida, like when I bought that piece of land in Lehigh Acres, is by the time you pay taxes, by the time you pay people to work on the property, clear it, get it surveyed, this and that, you're probably going to lose money unless you're holding on to it for a very long time. But it does hold its value more than all the vehicles I've bought over the years. Like, I'm looking at this truck where we're driving when we went up to Michigan. I'm sitting here like, I paid $46,000 to this truck. Cash out of pocket. The crap was I thinking? You know what I mean? Like, what was I thinking? There's a guy walking his dog in the middle of nowhere. I like people from Michigan. Good people. Anyways, that's today's video. I don't know why I'm still talking.